Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Kuali Ready webinar. My name is Annie Bartlett. I am Kuali Ready's content manager, and I'm so glad that you could all join us today. I'm going to go over a few housekeeping things, and then we'll turn the time over to Lois and Tony, who are the real reason you came today. So just so you know, everybody will be on mute throughout the presentation. We will open for Q&A at the end of the presentation, so please submit questions as they come to you by clicking on the chat button on the bottom of your webinar window. You can scroll over that and see that now. You can send those questions at any time directly to me, and I will share those with Tony at the end of the webinar. We'll get through as much as we can in the time that we have. This webinar will be recorded, and a link to the recording will be shared with you. So you can share that link with your colleagues who weren't able to make it today. And I will now introduce Lois Hollis from ICUT Member Services. Go ahead, Lois, take it away.
Thanks, Annie. Good afternoon, and thank you guys for joining us for the ICUT Kuali Ready webinar on business continuity planning. Like Annie said, I'm Lois Hollis, and I'm the Director of Member Services at ICUT. And for those of you not familiar with ICUT, I'm going to give you the two-sentence definition of what ICUT is. ICUT stands for Independent Colleges and Universities. We advocate for private nonprofit higher education in Texas. We've been around since 1965 and have 42 member schools. My job as Member Services Director is to organize affinity group meetings, find programs and agreements of interest to our members, and use our strength in numbers to get products and services at a discount. And I think Kuali Ready's business continuity planning program, it's a lot of P's, could be one of those programs. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tony Benjamin. He's Director of Customer Engagement at Kuali Ready, and he will be leading the discussion. Take it away, Tony.
I'm here to show you Kuali Ready. And the challenge that we have today is both a plus and a challenge, and that is that we have a very diverse group of attendees, people coming from public safety or IT or facilities, the chief of police, director of security, all have different perspectives on a tool for managing business continuity for an institution of higher ed. Everybody has their own concerns, and everybody has a different way of looking at what might be critical information for them. So it's a little bit of a challenge, but it's also, to me, a tremendous opportunity to say, you know, is there a focal point at which an institution can look at all those disparate requirements and have one place to meet? And I like to think of what I'm going to show you today, Ready, as a tool that helps, excuse me, an institution have that internal conversation between departments and IT and leadership and facilities and public safety to say, you know, this is what we do in our department. These are the resources we would need to recover from a disaster or an emergency or some event that prevents us from doing our job. Quick couple of things before I jump right in. Kuali Ready is a product that had its start in a foundation of a collaboration of large universities, founded back in 2004. Kuali, as a group that creates software for its members, in 2014 kind of put a more professional group in place to create that collaborative software for our members and subscribers. So what you're seeing is something born out of higher ed for higher ed. And I think you'll appreciate that. It really understands the education environment. Our philosophy, you know, we should all spend less on administration and spend more on teaching and research. So the idea was to simplify operations with cloud-based software delivered from the cloud, and with the goal of simplifying operations and, you know, reducing expense. So today's topic is continuity planning, and with people coming at it from different viewpoints, I often hear, is that disaster recovery? Because we've got that wired. Our IT department is in charge. We've got backup servers. We've got redundant, safe. We've got workstations ready to go. We've got alternatives to our IT resources. We've got a plan well considered and planned out to make sure that if something happens, our IT bounces right back. And somebody else might say, we know what to do in emergency. We've got an emergency action plan. We've got an operations center. We've got our communication strategy all worked out. We're ready to go for any emergency. What is missing in that in those scenarios for most schools is continuity plans, because the idea that we're ready to bounce back with technology with our disaster recovery plan maybe doesn't take into account what you need from each department to be partners in that plan. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Continuity plans are a time-driven response that says, you know, our desire is to be back and operational after some disruptive event within an hour, within 6 hours, within a week, based on the critical functions that we have, regardless of what the disaster was. Quick sampling of some of our customers. We have quite a few schools in Texas, Texas A&M System, Texas State, the University of Texas System, University of North Texas, and a whole bunch of schools around the country. There's over 100, excuse me, currently using the system. So if this is a goal worth doing, one of the things, of course, we want to talk about today is, as an association, can we, make this affordable? We've looked at it 5 years ago, it was out of reach. Or we did it with Word documents, and we keep them in SharePoint, but it really hasn't done anything to make us able to look at all that data captured and have it be useful for adding to our resilience. There are some real challenges in going from either we did this 5 years ago or we've never done this, and now I'm going to ask all these departments to create continuity plans, because as the emergency manager or director of public safety, I certainly am not going to do it for all those departments. I don't know the ins and outs and the specifics of what they do. Somebody might have had a question. Go ahead and type it in. Okay, so with that in mind, that it's a difficult scenario to get cooperation from a whole bunch of departments that are focused on what they do. They're involved in research, or they're involved in academics or instruction or athletics, or they just want to get payroll out next month. They don't want to do a little project where they have to tell you the specifics of everything they do and where they do it and who does it, so that you can help them build a coherent plan for managing the after effects of some disruption. Those challenges involve the department saying, what do I need to do? Who will help me? What is a continuity plan? Leadership might say the same thing. What's a continuity plan? Why should we have one? Who's going to create it? Where do we keep it? Don't we already have disaster recovery? I thought I put a lot of money in the budget for extra servers. What's going on? Administrators that would be tasked with running the system might say, how do we get buy-in and support? How do we have accountability so the departments actually help us do this? What tools are available to help the non-BCP conversant staff? What meaningful data will those plans actually provide for us? We have multiple campuses. Can I, get this to help me with, coordinating efforts and all those other things? What will this actually do for me, and how will we get these plans created? So our solution is called Kuali Ready. It's hosted off campus, secure and accessible in state-of-the-art facilities. with all the redundancy and safety that are required by our large university customers. You'll see that it's forms-based and really an interview format that makes it possible, much like TurboTax for your taxes makes it possible for the lay person to do, some really pretty detailed taxes. But this is built for higher ed, and it's got the role-based approach so that you can designate viewers, plan editors, managers, etc. And then it's got a powerful reporting tool that can really help you see in total what's going on across the institution. It's done by being thoughtfully designed. When you see the system, you should agree with me that, wow, it's clean, it's simple, I can see what each screen means, and it's very, simple to get around and impossible to get lost in. It's, device agnostic. You could be running from a burning building, holding your iPad, and you can get a hold of things you need to do. There's flexible reporting and analytics, and all those extras would be included in your subscription price, the authentication, support, documentation, everything. So that's basically what the system that I'm going to show you is all about. So let's take a look at it. What you're looking at is the dashboard of the system. This is if you're the administrator of the program, your dashboard page tells you the number of plans you have and the status of each of those. And then the latest system activity. This is a demonstration system. And I have been picking on financial aid lately and creating their plan and adding things to it. The menu is pretty simple. Over here, you'll see that there are just 5 choices for administrators of the system. The dashboard I'm looking at, the plan page where I'll see all the plans. Administration is how we run the systems. You can make some choices about various things, and I'll show you that. And then reports, of course, will give you the ability to report on all the information that's captured. And then the help screen, which leads you to our help portal. Here you can put in a ticket, say my printer's not working, or anything at all, and also communicate as a community to the other schools that use the software, asking for best practices and anything else you might want. Anytime you want to add something to the system, it's usually in the top right with a little plus sign. So here you'll note that it says start a new plan. When you look at the plan page, you'll see that it simply lists the departments / plan. A department essentially is a plan. So here's English, here's finance, here's the School of Business, here's the graduate program. It'll show you the status of that plan, when it was created, and when it was last updated. And of course, these 2 dates will tell you a lot about how active is this department in that plan. Did they meet the deadline that we set for reviewing and updating, etc. As a administrator, you have the right to view, edit, copy, and delete plans. Putting a plan together should be looked at in 2 phases. Phase 1 is extremely easy, and I'm going to do one completely from scratch so that you can see what a plan looks like when it is totally not existent yet. So I'm going to start a new plan. I'm going to call this the iCut department. I wouldn't normally put department, right? So I might say something like iCut services or something, okay? This is the entire window for creating a new plan. What division is this in? Let's say that it's in facilities. Is there an acronym that I want to associate with this? It might be FAC for facilities. The acronym appends to the department name and simply then allows for me to order my list, say alphabetically, or put all like departments together. And if you choose the wrong acronym, it's not a big deal. It doesn't affect the fact that this is iCut services. Okay, we save it. We have a department, and looking at the system properly, you now see your menus that are always persistent. And then you've created a new department. Here's a plan detail page. And then the next 4 items basically give you the path that you're going to go on. The system says, give me plan details, and then tell me what critical function you do in your department. Add any key resources. Tell me what you need from information technology. And are you instructional department? There might be a whole bunch of other things you can add there. But the plan detail sheet is relatively simple. It is my department name, and then I describe what it is I do for the institution. And I might say something like, we do all kinds of things, including raising money with an annual fundraiser. I might say contracts, PR, whatever they do. They can describe, they can write a book there if they like. What division are you in? When I created this plan, I said you're under facilities. A user might say, well, I'm actually under financial services, or I'm actually under administrative services. They can say, I think I'm in this major division. And again, this is a facilitated conversation between a department which you really maybe don't know all that much about, and they're telling you, you thought I was under facilities, I'm under administration services. Okay, that's great. It doesn't change the fact that this is the iCut services department. They have a head of a unit. It might be me. They have a number of faculty or staff. Let's say they have 4 staff. They have 1 student helper. Those are 4 full-time people, and there's 2 volunteers. They are part of, or they are a type of department. Let's say they're special. They can choose from this. And they might say we're special, but we're also administrative. The location that they're in, I'm pretty interested in knowing. They can say we are in, and here is a list of all the buildings. The system comes with the facility to input all your buildings at once. So, they can identify we're in the Jones building. You may not have known this, but they're also in the finance auxiliary building. They can be in multiple buildings. They have an evacuation plan for all buildings, and they can put in any notes about a cost center or comments. They save that. Voila, step 1 is complete. You've asked all departments to put in their plan detail page, and within really a few minutes, somebody who knows that department should be able to do this, and it's done. At this point, you should have a plan page that already looks like this. If you've broadcast an invitation to 29 departments and everybody did just that, you would see the plan name, the status, and it would all be in progress. The created date, last updated, these would match, and then your ability to edit, copy, delete, any of those things. So I've created this iCut services, it's in progress, and here you see it's starting today. So now when I view that plan, I can now see that under plan details, there's a few other things. None of these probably would have anything in it until they provide more information. But at this point, as the administrator of the system, I can say I want to assign somebody else to review that plan. So in running the system, it's pretty easy to say, edit this, add somebody else as a viewer of this plan, or add another plan manager so two people can manage a plan. Pretty simple to do. So running the system from a administrative standpoint is hopefully very clear and easy to see. But what is step 2 in beginning to gather the information that we need for specifics for each of the departments that we'll want into the system? That is for them to tell you what it is that they do that is critical and important in our institution, a critical function. A user should add a critical function, and it should be something important. Here are a few examples: a yearly fundraiser, payroll, welcoming new students, teaching chemistry, providing instruction, managing the evacuation of sick patients. Those are all pretty good. But for us, we're doing member services and information. That's a critical function. I do that, and it's important. I have people that are dedicated doing this, and we have space dedicated to providing the tools to be able to do that, and we use equipment to do this critical function. How critical is it? Here, the user gets to say, well, this is important enough that only if forced we can pause this, but we must resume, say, in 30 days or sooner. These 4 levels of criticality are editable by you as an institution. But let's say, hey, within 30 days, we better be able to resume member services and information. I'll save that. Now, what you see is the main page of this critical function, member services and information, needs a little bit more information put in about it. What do? We communicate to all departments, etc. They're going to give you a narrative of what this critical function entails. Who does it? We do. Who's responsible? And here you're going to put names. Jane Smith. And what you're looking for there is names and titles, because names certainly could change, but it's good to know, you know, the information about who does this and who's responsible. There could be several names here. That's pretty simple. And you'll notice now below description, there are other fields. You want additional information about this. The next thing would be, when are you most busy? We're super busy in June and December. And it might be something like biannual meetings, whatever it might be. What documents do you need to make sure you have handy, or that everybody should have access to? You can add documents into the system. You can say these are paper, and the name of the document is our standard operating procedure, but we also have an electronic copy, and it's on our SharePoint drive. Or you could say the document is, you know, in drawer A, wherever it is, or the document could be dragged from your drive. You know, what, you know, what network drive or whatever is available, you can drag the file right into here and drop it. Okay. So if you do that, you now have a document available to everybody in your department and stored on, you know, online. The next thing is dependencies. You are not an island. You depend on other departments to do your critical functions. You can add them here. You can paint the picture of who you depend on to do this critical function. You can add a whole bunch. They can be other departments or they can be processes. And as you add them, oops, they get put into the system. Hold on a second. Okay. You can also let us know who downstream depends on you to do this. So here you might say, you know, campus safety or any other department that really needs you to do this function. And as you can see, if there's a department that has a whole lot of other departments dependent upon them to do this, as you analyze what all these reports mean and all the you know, the feedback is, you get to prioritize which departments maybe should receive resources first, the ones that have the most other departments dependent upon them. Now here's where we kind of go into the interview portion of things. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but here's where you know, a department who has a critical function is asked, if you can't get back to doing this within 30 days, what would be the consequences? And really begin to understand and communicate to us that if you can't do this, you know, could we have a disruption of research or patient care? Could faculty depart? Could we lose staff, students? This would gather our attention. If you can't do this and it will cause a loss of students as an institution looking to make sure we keep our enrollment up, that's going to be a concern and addressed. How about the well-being of faculty or students? And here, of course, they can explain with you know, whatever. Could this result in payment deadlines being unmet? Could we lose revenue? How about legal obligations? Would this mean we don't meet our legal obligations? And could that cause us legal harm? You know, we really want them to go through and paint the picture of what could happen if this critical function were not able to resume in a reasonable time. Now they've selected 30 days as a reasonable time where this must be must be able to be continued. But they can also select their ideal RTO, return to operations. They might say 1 hour. So they save that. Having gone through that exercise, the system now asks them, think of ways to cope realistically with the loss of your space, your staff, your unique skills. You do this in an office setting. If you didn't have that, a fire took your building out, what would you do? And they might say, we would work from home. What if you lost your staff? There's a pandemic, nobody's around. We would need to call on replacements. Okay. This is the realistic type of responses you want to see in how to cope. What would you do? You have no way of knowing whether it's going to be a storm or an active shooter or a PR disaster that is causing a denial of service attack because all our all our technology is being overwhelmed. Those kind of things happen. Doesn't matter what it is. If you lose your staff, if you lose your space, think of alternatives. I think you get the idea. Hey, can somebody work from home? Would they need network access if they did so? Are there any showstoppers? Or anything you do that's a resource that's irreplaceable? If you do some of these alternatives, provide alternative space or different people. Does that engender any risk to us as an institution? Can we do anything to control that risk? Would we need to put policy exceptions in place? And a great question is always, is there anything else you can think of? You know, we're dealing with higher ed. You never know what you're going to see here. Okay, so they go through that exercise. They've thought through the consequences. They've put some ideas on how to cope. The logical next step that you want to see out of them is action. You know, this is not a dry exercise of what would you do. This is go through, think through this, and then realize that, hey, there are steps that we can take right now that would mitigate a disruption. And it might be plan on making or okay, this is a good one. All right, if we can't do what we do in our office, everybody has to work from home. But we might need to put a VPN in place because we're dealing with some sensitive data. So let's edit this for more specificity. What is this action item for? It's for our critical function of member services. Is there a cost for a VPN? Man, I'm not sure, but it might cost at least $100, let's say. What's the cost frequency? One time? Who do I want to do this? And I might say, Bill Jones. If he's in the system, he will get an email saying a task has been assigned to you. And by the end of November, you must, for our unit, that is a concrete, real action item that should result in us being ready to immediately switch over to people working from home if something happens to their building. And so that's the tour of phase 1 and 2 of what I want out of each department. Because as you probably know, the difficulty is getting cooperation from a whole bunch of departments that are focused on what they do. You've got to be able to say to them, you know, this will not take long, but there's a benefit for you to do this. It gives you the ability to have a conversation with us that says, this is what I do and it's important. And I might need financial resources to make sure that I can bounce back from some disruptive event. And that's the avenue. So now our institution has all these plans, and I can go to any one of these and take a look and see what they identified as important and what they do and any action items. Certainly when I view the visitor center, I can then see, is there an action item summary of things they want to do? Yes. Did they upload any documents? Yep. Who runs their plan? I've reviewed it, I can update it. These are the things I can do from an administrative standpoint. Reports makes that kind of stuff easy. It gives me the ability to say, let me look across my multiple campuses, see all my buildings. And my demonstration school actually has a worldwide presence. I have schools in Europe and the Middle East as well. Shows me all my buildings. It gives me the ability to drill down into what that visual representation is and what the departments and you know, addresses are of those buildings. It lets me immediately take data and export it to an Excel spreadsheet or a PDF file. So the data that's captured can be looked at in those venues for reporting. I can look at things like all my action items. say, you know, what are the things that all these departments want that might cost me money? There's always that cost range field. And I can say, show me just those items, for instance, that cost a lot. You know, let's get right down to what, oh, somebody wants to buy a new truck. Somebody wants buses. Somebody wants to create an MOU with a local bank, maybe a line of credit to make sure that they can replace a lab, etc. Whatever it might be. So I have the tools to kind of look through everything, including an activity log to tell me, you know, which departments were just in the system and what did they do. It's transactional. What a, you know, what a difference between static documents stored somewhere that you know, go out of date pretty rapidly and can't be combed through across all departments for these kind of things. So this is recorded, and you'll be able to kind of, you know, stop and start, go back. If that, you know, creates some questions, you know, just ping us or Lois, and we'll get back to you. Also, you know, if you will share this with others in your institution, you know, that's generally how people begin to, you know, have the conversation internally around the likes of, are we doing this already? What have we done? Can we implement something like this? You know, how realistic is it that we can afford it? It's one of the reasons we're talking to you as a group, is that we, you know, we know systems that do these kind of things can go for $40,000 first year and $20,000 a year for even a small school. The cost that, you know, we will extend to ICUT schools will be dramatically affordable. I think you'd be very pleased. And if it's something that, you know, you want to look at as a group, I think you'll see that there's, you know, cost will not be an issue. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. Lois, you have anything else to say?
No, but I want to thank you, Tony and Annie, for hosting the webinar. I really appreciate it. And for those of you from ICUT who are on the call, if, like Tony said, if you have any questions, contact him. If you want to know about any kind of agreements, contact me, and we'll get you answers.
Wonderful. I hope you enjoy the presentation. I thank you for your time.